Tai Chi's official webcast. Just kidding there. So this is Friday night. Dane and Andrew here. We're going to talk about Tai Chi principles and can you learn Tai Chi without forms? Dane, what's your first reaction to that sentence or question?
Well, it's a matter. My first reaction is it's a matter of definition, i.e., preference. So what do we mean by Tai Chi? What do we mean by forms? What do we mean by learn even? And so the first thing I'll acknowledge is that there are some people for whom that would be a contradiction in terms. There's a category of I guess a line of thinking that goes Tai Chi is identical with the forms, and Tai Chi is the forms, and the forms are Tai Chi. And even if people don't explicitly put it that way, that's what shows up in practice. So if you are one of, if you choose to plant your definitions that way, then obviously it's a contradiction in terms. You can't learn Tai Chi without forms, and Tai Chi wouldn't even exist without forms. And there are plenty of people who could sort of make a case for that based on a lot of well-known and well-worn ideas, largely having to do with traditionalism and various like traditional cultural and historical aspects, things like that. And those are all valuable. That's a valuable part of the martial arts heritage. Is how I feel about it, really. As far as the practice and the teaching and how it's evolving into the 21st century along with the rest of humanity, I consider myself to be one of those who de-emphasizes the importance of forms, in particular, and memorization in general, for martial arts and for Tai Chi, and instead emphasize the importance of principles. So martial energetics is a principle-based system. The emphasis and the focus, much as in the scientific method, the emphasis is not on the specific rules or facts or special cases, but on the general principles underlying them. So philosophically, the way I would put it is that the forms, the principles contain the forms, and the forms can be derived from the principles, and not the other way around. So if you have the principles, you can create an unlimited number and variety of forms. But having any number of forms, any finite number of forms, cannot completely capture all the principles. So in terms of inclusion, exclusion, the forms are primary in that sense. So in training, we put the emphasis on principles, understanding, and not just intellectual understanding, but kinesthetic embodied awareness and knowing and experience and feeling, that type of knowing as well, of principles. So that they become part of who you are, part of your consciousness. And then not just forms, but techniques arise from the kinesthetic felt understanding and awareness of principles. And another in the tradition of philosophical thought experiments, we could imagine, what if you forgot all of your forms, or what if all the forms were erased, or what if, like in Kung Fu Panda, what if somebody killed Kung Fu by killing off all the great Kung Fu masters or the great Tai Chi masters? Would Tai Chi be dead?
I need to interrupt real quick. My buddy Kenny, that I got to meet when I was over the Shaolin Temple, he said when he hit 60 years old, he's giving all his forms back to his teachers. And what he meant was, I'm not teaching their forms. I'm not going to do any more with the traditional style that I learned. He's only going to teach the things he derived from all of it. So he's kind of like saying, no, I'm going to teach my own style now forever. And I'm not going to teach anything else that I've done, because we inherit all these traditional ways and we have these ways that are embedded in us. And he's just like, I'm done trying to keep up with all the stuff I learned. I learned so much stuff. It's so hard to keep up with all those forms and trying to remember them and like, okay, where did this one go? What happened with this move? Okay. Oh, wait, no, that was something else I was supposed to do. That was a different form. Just slipped into it. You know, it's so easy to do that when you know a lot of forms. So he's giving his forms back. And that means he's taking on all the principles he has and he's going to make his own movements and his own style.
And hopefully encourage his own students to eventually do the same, right? We all walk our own path and create our own destiny. And I love that story and that image of giving back your forms, because they're tools. I mean, in my conception, forms are tools. They're the finger pointing at the moon. It's like a book. I mean, a form is like a book. It's like a graduate level physics textbook or something. You really have to have the grounding and to extract the value there. But it's not the thing itself. It's the tool to internalize those principles, and it's a tool for passing them on. It's a very old tradition that predates written and perhaps even oral history, and it is a form of history in itself. That's where that comes from. But yeah, we all walk our own path, and a few conceptions that I use are martial arts should be more like a science and less like a religion, more like a search for truth rather than a preservation of ways handed down. And martial arts are open source. It's a huge ecosystem out there that we are all collectively creating, and everyone's contribution is valuable. There's lots of ways I could qualify that, but for the moment, I'll just say everyone's contribution is valuable to the sum total of human knowledge and history and experience. It's something that we can all approach not just as supplicants and consumers, but as explorers and creators, and that's very much in the spirit of the scientific method. And there's something else I wanted to mention regarding memorization as well, from the perspective of education and learning theory. There are some significant drawbacks to memorization as a learning tool or a teaching tool. There are obviously advantages, largely in terms of standardization. It's the same kind of dynamic in the school system, in public education, where memorization is something that can be standardized and repeated. But actual learning is a dynamic process of growth and evolution and exploration and iterative creation. So there's significant drawbacks for memorization in terms of learning and developing proficiency in a subject, and it can actually be an obstacle to learning, and especially for kids who are forced to memorize stuff all day in school. Is that really what they want to go to martial arts class for? And adults, for that matter, who left school behind, and good riddance. Is that really what they want to get? And then of course, if you memorize something, you can always forget it. But if you know something, and this is something that I've taught to students over and over again, math and physics students, is if you memorize it, you can forget it. But if you know it, it's always with you. And that's related to the difference between techniques or forms and principles. Principles are kind of in the bones when you get them on that level, whether or not you can memorize or recite recite anything. So the fundamental purpose of forms are a form of solo practice for optimizing movement, and there's many ways to accomplish that. As far as and there's many dynamics of training solo and with a partner, that all go towards that same end. There's a whole universe of training modalities out there to explore. In our system, we don't place the emphasis on memorization or on specific forms or techniques. That doesn't mean we completely reject them. They're there if you want them. They're tools that can be picked up and used at any time. And the purpose of them is to facilitate your own learning and growth and evolution process. So the emphasis that we place is on the principles and on the process of exploration and self-discovery. So that's what I mean by de-emphasizing the importance of, as in it's not the end-all be-all, it's not the primary thing, it's not the defining factor, it's just one aspect of the universe.
Yeah, okay. It is one aspect of the universe.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one thing about forms,
perspective, in other words.
I've studied a lot of different martial arts, and yeah, forms abound in my experience. So I have learned with forms, but I've also learned because of two-person sets, actually fighting people, actually having to have people grab me and try and throw me to the ground, and people pulling me to the ground and having to get dragged. And I've done all of the levels of the training. So I've not just done forms. And there are a lot of people who only do form. And when they only do form, they don't get to practice the feeling of the form. And so they start thinking the form is the thing they're supposed to learn, not the thing they're learning. So they're learning Tai Chi, but they're learning these long forms, these long patterns, but they're not learning the thing that is Tai Chi. They're learning, memorizing, they're doing it in all these crazy ways, but so they don't really get that structure. They never get that posture thing. It's because they're constantly just learning new moves and not working on anything, because it's all as much as I can. There's so much to learn. Gosh, there's so much to learn. Dude, I learned at my first Tai Chi school, I learned 3 forms in 3 months. So like 24 form, a sword form, 32 sword, and soon 73. That's a 73 move form. I learned that in the first 3 months. That was insane. I was learning forms like left and right, because I could memorize things. It was really good. I was in the middle of college. So memorization is easy. So I just, okay, choreography, I can memorize choreography. So I got through the form thing, and it's hard for people. It's really hard. A lot of people will only be able to do 1 or 2 forms, and I was on like my 15th form. But all of them were just okay because I was practicing so many different things. You practice, when you go to practice, instead of practicing 1 or 2 sets, you would have to practice 12 sets, because you just do one. Okay, that one took 4 minutes. The next one takes 6 minutes. The next one takes 8 minutes. The next one takes 3 minutes. And then you can bang them out in an hour, and you're exhausted, you're sweaty, you're super hot because you did all this Tai Chi and like the Qigong stuff. It's great. But your mind is like, so much.
Yeah, well, that actually speaks to one aspect of one differentiation that we make between kinesthetic and cerebral learning, and in practice, it's a state of consciousness, because memorizing and focus on a specific outcome, both. are cerebral types of phenomena that actually they send the chi into the brain, to put it one way. But they put your awareness, they put your locus of control, your center of consciousness in your head. And what we want in practice is to have the consciousness be down in the body. So if you're trying to focus on doing a very specific thing, like thread a needle, some very specific outcome, it brings the chi up into the head and out of the body, which is achieving the opposite aim of practice from an energetic perspective. If that's something that you are sensitive to, and also
whoever want to learn forms, you got to repeat that thing 1,000 times before you can actually get to that meditative state. You have to know the form so well that you lose yourself while you do the form. You don't even think about the form, and you do the whole thing. And that's what learning a form is, and being able to perform on stage. And you lose yourself because it's like, oh, there's 1,000 people looking at me. There's no one looking at me. Doesn't matter, because you're just not even really doing it. You're just in your head. This is just happening.
Mm-hmm.
No force, no force, no mind.
Which I think that is actually a great encapsulation of the aim and the benefit of forms. At least a large portion of it is if you do some specific thing over and over again exactly the same way, and not just memorize it intellectually, but embody it so that your body can do it all by itself. That's an achievement of a certain enables us an achievement of a certain meditative state of consciousness, which is of value in its own right, and is worth pursuing if one feels called to. If that's what you want to pursue, if that's what you want to get out of it, it's a great thing to pursue. And so that's again de-emphasizing the role of that. It's not that it's valueless, it's just not the central feature. It's an option. It's one possible approach, and it's not the thing itself. It's a vehicle. In fact, for that specific state of consciousness, the sort of automatic awareness that happens, that's developed by doing one single form many times, or one single pattern, or one single movement. It doesn't even have to be an entire form. It can be just a single movement repeated over and over again, which is a form of auto-hypnosis. Mm-hmm. But that isn't something that, I mean, the more things you try to memorize, the less you get there. That doesn't come from memorizing one thing, then another thing, then another thing in rapid succession. That memorizes from spending a lot of time with one thing, and it can't even be a single movement, not a form. So that auto-hypnosis, one of the mechanisms that induces auto-hypnosis, along with muscular relaxation and either focus or diffused awareness, is repetitive action or stimuli. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again, that is one way to induce a very deep state of hypnosis, a deep state of consciousness, and that's the value of it, and that's one reason that that people like doing the same thing over and over again, is for that very reason. So if that's what you want to do, that's an option. And the thing that I contrast that with is free form movement and active exploration, whether it's solo or with a partner. It's not choreographed, not even volitionally. It's just free form, spontaneous movement, in hands-on experience. Is what's in contrast to memorization and repetition, and that's kind of where the emphasis for developing innate awareness and understanding of principles is. Another thing that comes to mind to mention is the forms. If you're doing solo movement of any kind, whether it's choreographed or free form, um, having the hands-on awareness is what allows you to get the most value from that form. So in the context of Tai Chi, for example, often people start by learning a form, they do forms for a while, and then eventually they do push hands. And you actually, the more hands-on experience you get, the more value you're able to get from solo movement, from solo practice. Going back to what you're saying about some people doing only the form, and thinking that that's it, that they're getting the whole enchilada. That's not. That's the garnish. That's that's not it by any stretch of the imagination. Um, uh, so again, the idea is that there's not a rejection of this, but a de-emphasis and putting everything in perspective and focus on what's primary, which is the principles and the embodied awareness thereof. And you mentioned your friend who you said was 60, who said he gave his forms back to his teacher
when he hit 60. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was 60. It's a lot of very advanced Tai Chi and Qigong teachers have said that. People that I've talked with on this web show, people that I've interviewed, have said that. David Dorian Ross did a
So
YouTube video, put out a YouTube video on that. Maybe don't worry about the forms quite so much. It's, and so it's an idea that is more in sync and in tune with the modern era and the sort of rapid and progressive evolution that we're undergoing as a species and the free flow of information and just the burgeoning bounty of trust and open sharing. The world is becoming more and more open source in general, and that includes martial arts.
Very true. Yeah, we have a lot more access to these ancient skills than we ever did before. That's for sure. I don't think Bruce Lee was able to just go like, all right, I want to watch videos about Wing Chun. Click. Okay. Wow, that's what it's about. Oh,
yeah.
I get it. I get it. I get it. All right, let's get karate. I get it. Okay, I know karate. Okay, it's Tai Chi. Oh, they move so slow. What the hell? No, we have access to absolutely all of this ancient knowledge that people died to protect. Oh, they would kill each other. Like, oh, you taught an outsider, dude. It's like, no, I swear I didn't teach that kid. Oh, you motherfucking did. I saw him. I attacked him, and he used those techniques. I had to kill him. I'm killing you.
Yeah, a really, really long and bloody history in many cases that now is, we have this world of open sharing. And as much as people bemoan the side effects of various technologies, it's all good. It's all great. More information is great. The fact that more people have more ways to be exposed. This is how we're evolving, and we're all growing closer together as a species. And it's absolutely amazing and wonderful. Some people will say, "Oh, books and videos are no good. You got to get the hands-on teaching from a certified master. It's the ancient, authentic lineage is where it's at, and then everywhere else is a cheap imitation." But it's all good. The abundance of information is all good because these are these this ancient wisdom is truly a gift to and a birthright, a heritage of all humanity. So this is truly the most exciting time to be alive. So many.
When's not the most exciting time, Dane? Come on. It's like going unsaid.
Anytime is not good.
That's why it's called the present, man.
Yeah.
It's the present.
But I love this question. This is a really great question because it really gets to the heart of what Tai Chi means and what it's about and how does the past relate to the future, because it's about putting it in perspective. The past is what it is, and the present is what it is, and the future is what it is. We can't afford to reject any of it. It's about embracing all of it. So I'm really fascinated with how Tai Chi and Qigong and these other forms of ancient wisdom are evolving into the future. So I really appreciate this question, and there's a lot more a lot of directions we could take this, but that's just more topics for future shows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's good. Good chat, man. Good chat. I get it. I'd say definitely you don't need these long forms to really learn Tai Chi. You can do it in small sets just as easily, and just learning foundational principles and practicing basics every goddamn day. You can do it. So get out there. Good luck. You'll find a way.
Yeah, if you want to learn Tai Chi, don't let forms stop you. Don't let it be in the way. If you have ever wanted to try Tai Chi, now is the perfect time. You know, it's funny to me how often when people come to our beginners, to beginners Tai Chi class, people come for the first time and they say, "I've never done this before. Is it okay?" Well, otherwise it would be a dead art, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay.
And I say, yeah, it's good. Let's just do this. Let's tuck our butt in. Let's sink into our knee like we're a spring. And once you get these sensations of like, oh, my legs are springy. I can feel how they're springy in this position with my back straight. And there's a lot of little detail, but once you get them into that posture, they're like, I found it. And then it's like, okay, you don't need me anymore. Now I'm in the way. Go. You practice all you like.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. Now is the perfect time to learn Tai Chi, and it's absolutely okay to be a beginner. So, so yes.
All masters were beginners.
Our community.
Never forget that. Every single teacher was a student, and every single teacher is a student.
Tai Chi masters who were 70 years old who didn't start until they were 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like that's why they're old masters. They never got to do the young man's style of Tai Chi. So that's the other problem. They never learned the hard, like, beat the crap out of each other Tai Chi. So that's one thing I'm studying. All right.
Life is hard enough on us, so let's be gentle on ourselves and each other.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Good chatting with you, Andrew. Have a good one. See ya.
See ya.